Welcome everyone to another episode of MoFutbol, where we all talk soccer from grassroots soccer all the way to the pros. And today I have a very special guest. I typically say that as well, but Coach Jim Hart is one that, the past few years have had the pleasure to speak about not only soccer in general, but also high school soccer, which he's been a very huge component about. He has about 36 years of coaching experience on and off the field, have coached and have many of his former players, coaches, are now coaches in various levels. So I'm very proud to have him on today's show. It's been a long time coming, and we finally have it. So how are you doing, Coach Jim?
Doing great, Mo, and I super appreciate you having me on with you, and I'm excited to be part of the Mo football world.
It was due time, right?
Yeah,
We've talked for so many years. You've brought so many people to the podcast, but I think we've had numerous conversation over the phone and online, but never guess went into the podcast. So
yes,
great things to have. So for those that may be hiding under a rock who do not know, US soccer, could you tell them a little bit, about your 36 years of not only coaching but also teacher as a teacher?
sure. Thank you for asking me. I graduated from Quincy College in 1980 with a degree in physical education. It was at Quincy that I first was exposed to soccer through the great Quincy College teams, coached by Jack McKenzie and and Coach Frank Longo, along with Jack McKenzie. Many fantastic players in the St. Louis area that are now coaching in the St. Louis area played on some of those great Quincy teams of the late 70s. I went to almost all the games, got to know some of those players, but mostly Coach McKenzie, who took me under his wing and stayed with me right on through the beginning of my coaching career and deep into our coaching career. Actually, Coach ended up recruiting some of our players to go to Quincy and play at some point. But that's where it all started for me. I got a degree in physical education, became a PE teacher in 1981, and taught for 39 years at elementary school PE. But I also started, and it was actually after being exposed to Quincy, I started coaching recreational soccer in 1977 here in Florida and ended up beginning coaching high school in 1979. What you all in St. Louis have to understand is that you have such a deeply ingrained soccer culture, but in Tampa, there was no soccer culture before 1975. The Tampa Bay Rowdies got in there and really just got us all going so well. And then high school picked up in the ensuing years, and they 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 had a lot of excitement about high school, but they didn't have any coaches. And because there were a lot of people that didn't really know what to do, and because I had gone to Quincy and had a relationship with Coach McKenzie, that put me one or two steps ahead just on that alone. So I was very fortunate, the timing of me going into high school coaching. So I started then, coached at several different schools, ended up coaching in college for about 3 years. Went to Clearwater Central Catholic in 1987, stayed there 25 years to 2012, transferred to Carrollwood Day School, and then retired from high school coaching in 2018. And it was my last year at Carrollwood Day when the idea for the high school Champions League began to formulate. It was actually before that last season started. And so since then, I'm no longer coaching in high school. I remained a teacher till 2021, where I retired from teaching. And now that I'm retired from teaching and coaching, now I have nothing to do except I have everything to do because of the High School Champions League. So it is a super exciting arc of my life and career. And what I say, Mo, is to people, you think you're busy now, wait till you retire.
That's interesting take. We'll have to run maybe towards the end. We'll have to run a little deeper on that one because that's quite interesting. I thought I thought maybe that was going to be the other way around, but
No,
I guess not.
well,
That
the thing is, you can do anything you want,
one. Okay,
right?
cool.
And it's not work; it's fun. So
So in everyone's bucket list, yes, to do
yes.
only the fun stuff.
Hmm.
So have you always thought about wanting to be a coach before, or was this circumstance of what you mentioned of wanting needing Tampa to have coaches for soccer?
No, it's such a great question. It when I was growing up, um, I was I and another friend of mine who lived across the street from me. His name is Jimmy Sullivan. We, at the ages of 7, 8, 9, we were those kids that always organized everything in the neighborhood, that organized the
Nice.
games. And, we would get a two versus two football game going, for example. And we would be the ones that would make the teams that would say, okay, over by that tree, that's where one touchdown is. And by this other wall is the other. I mean, we would do all that. That's what I did as a kid, just naturally did it. But when I went to college, I didn't see being a PE teacher as something to aspire to. Maybe that's cultural. Culture it tends to look down on PE teachers. I've come to sort of really come around on that. I think PE teachers are one of the most underappreciated set of people in our society. I think they do a lot, but at that time, as a college age kid, I thought, well, no, I have to be something better than this. I have to go for something more. So I went back and forth through different majors, uh, and couldn't find anything. And then, like I said, in 1977, I entered school in 1974. In 1977, I quit school for a little while, and I ended up coaching a recreational soccer team. And I loved it so much, and it brought me back in touch with that part of myself that was natural. I just said, you know what? What am I fighting this for? I'm just going to go back to Quincy, change my major to PE. It's going to take me a couple more years to graduate, but that's going to be time well spent. And I remember having a meeting with myself around 1978 or so, and I asked myself this question: could you be happy living in a one-bedroom apartment and driving a used car for the rest of your life if you could do this for a living? And the answer I gave myself was yes, I could, as long as I had shelter and transportation, and I could, I didn't need to be rich, but what I got were rich experiences, the rich experiences of being able to be involved in sport. And so I just said, I'm going for it. And so there was a period of time when I sort of looked down my nose at the idea of going into PE and sport, but you know, soccer changed it. Coaching a recreational soccer team changed my life.
That's amazing, and I think that's why we all have that connections. That soccer, that the global sport, kind of bring us from different ways, but we all end up in loving the same sport. And so it looks like for you, it was soccer that brought you into teaching the future kids and future athletes to now moving into what high school Champions League is now. So could you tell us, so it looks like you went from you being a kid organizing games, tournaments, to then going to education. And then now you kind of brought those two worlds together to then being a PT teacher, coaching soccer, and now organizing high school soccer. So could you tell us a little bit with you and Dave and others, what was the first vision of high school soccer and maybe a little bit of how that came about?
About the Champions League, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so great question. So when I was at Clearwater Central Catholic High School for 25 years, we were actually considered the top high school program in the state of Florida, and our record backs it up. We had won a lot of championships, a lot of good players that went on to play at high levels, and all of this. Well, in 2012, a friend of mine who is on the board of a school called Carrollwood Day School, relatively new high school, he said, he called me up and he said, what we think here at Carrollwood Day School, we could have a good soccer program, but we don't really know what to do with it. What would you do if you were our soccer coach? What would you do with this program? So this is a good friend of mine, and I was happy to, take a look at it and think about it. And so I spent a little time and put a little plan together, called him back, and I said, here's what I would do if I were you. Now, of course, I didn't have to, this wasn't my school.
Right.
I didn't have to raise money for this or anything like that. So I gave them this Cadillac plan. I mean, this beautiful, and understand this school that they had a high school team for had only been in existence. The high school team had only been in existence about 8 years, and they'd only won about 10 games total in 8 years. They really weren't that good. They were
Right.
the whipping boys. So, but they were in IB, International Baccalaureate School. So I said, okay, here's what I would do if I were you. I would lean into being an IB school. Soccer is the international sport.
Yep.
If you're going to be an international baccalaureate school and soccer, you're going to have a soccer team, you should lean into the international element of that. And you should have your team leave the country once every 3 years and go travel to somewhere where there's soccer. And that should be a core piece of it. And then I said this. I gave a good standard program, what you might expect for for a good program to have in terms of equipment, scheduling, facilities, everything. So I said, Greg, my friend Greg Godsey, who is a sponsor of the Champions League, by the way, to this day, I said, Greg, this is what I would do if I were you. And he said, well, why don't you come here and do it with us? And I said, okay. I said, Greg, I'm not looking for a job. I was 55 years old. I'd been at this school 25 years, CCC. I really enjoyed it. And I wasn't looking for a job, but I said, thank you, but no thank you. And I went home and told my wife about this. And as it turns out, for the previous 5 years at CCC, I had been complaining to her about how I couldn't get things that I thought the program needed at CCC. And she said to me something like, look, you've been complaining about the school you work at, and here's somebody who wants to do exactly what you think should be done. And she said something like, are you such a big shot that you can't go coach a team that is, only won 10 games in 8 years? Players are players, this is a real moment for you to think about why you coach. And I was like, wow, that's really, really hit me hard. And so I gave it some thought, and I decided to resign from CCC after 25 years. I made sure to go out on good terms. I wrote a letter of resignation. I went and handed it in personally. I talked with everybody. I was grateful for the opportunity to be there. Everything. I didn't complain. It was a very good, amicable break. And then I just took on this project of Carrollwood Day School. Now, it was fun, and we weren't that good at first. So I told the kids, we're going to be like Stoke City. If you remember Stoke City and Tony Poulis' Stoke City in the mid 2000, in the mid 2012, 2013. They didn't try to play a whole lot of soccer.
Yes.
They just, so I went, and there were a couple of good players on the team, right? But most of the players weren't. And I said, guys, we're not going to trouble ourselves with things like dribbling and passing. We're just going to get the ball out, defend, and take our chances by playing in the other team's end and be hard to play against. Not physical, because we weren't physical players. We didn't. Carrollwood Day School is a high academic institution, so we did have some physical players, but we were more the brainiac type kids. But they were smart, right? So you could give them a plan, and they could follow it, and they could execute it, and they were happy to execute it. So we came out with our Stoke City mentality. and we started winning games, and people couldn't believe it. People couldn't believe that, and it was not pretty to look at,
Mhm.
but it was coordinated. There was a plan. It wasn't just random chaos. It was controlled chaos. It was um, it was good. It worked, and so we had a good first year. Then in our second year, we had a lot of confidence, and we ended up going all the way to the final eight in the state in our second year there. Lost that game in overtime, and so after 2 years, we'd really made some great progress. So now I'm thinking, okay, we need to upgrade our schedule, and we need to think not in terms of just surviving, but how can we position ourselves within the Tampa Bay area so that people know about us, so these kids can get some recognition. And that was the seed planted for this Champions League, maybe way back in 2015. So I started thinking about how can we get noticed. So one way to get noticed is to upgrade the schedule and play harder teams and then get
Right.
results against harder teams. Another way is to continue to do well in the state tournament. So it occurred to me that maybe what we could do, okay, put that story to the side for a minute. You know this story, Mo, and it's the story of the dropping attention toward high school soccer in the media. When I was at Clearwater Central Catholic, we got fantastic media coverage. You couldn't ask for more. But by the time I was at Carrollwood Day School in 2015, or 13, 14, 15, in that time, media coverage of high school soccer had dropped to zero. Okay. So I began thinking, okay, how can we bring attention to ourselves? Well, play better teams. We had our first international trip. We went to Manchester, England,
Yeah.
in the summertime. Uh, Manchester United could not have been nicer to us. Nobody was at the Manchester United grounds at the time we were there because it was off time. So they invited us to come to Carrington, their training ground. We had a practice. We had a team practice at Carrington in their indoor training ground. They let us come in there and practice. Nobody was there, so what did they care, right?
Priceless
They
experience, though.
priceless. The
Yes.
pictures are worth. So between that and the success, I began thinking, okay, the media has dropped off. Maybe we can create some media of our own. So the idea was formed to start a coaches poll. Okay. So I started reaching out to coaches and I said, listen, why don't we just get together once a week and put in who we think the best teams are and then just sort of collate that list and then put it on a Facebook page, start a Facebook page. And so, in other words, if the media wasn't going to cover us, we would cover ourselves. We
Right.
would make our own news and then cover it. Right. So that's what we began to do. I began talking to people, talking one at a time, patiently, no hurry, no timeline. And eventually, by the time we got to about 2017, we'd talked with enough people that we went ahead and opened up a Facebook page and we put out the first ballot to the coaches. And we basically said to them, just pick who you think, in your opinion, the top 15 teams are in the Tampa Bay area. And the Tampa Bay area was defined by three counties, the three
Mhm.
counties that make up the area, and just send them in. They could be you're the world's greatest expert on your own opinion, and that's
Right.
all we want is your opinion. Nobody knows it better than you do, right? And so the coaches were excited to do this, and a lot of coaches sent in their lists, not everybody. And so we collated the list and we opened a Facebook page and we published this list and we called it the Tampa Bay Top 10,
Top.
right?
Yes.
And so people loved it. They absolutely loved it. So now, suddenly, instead of two teams playing each other, school A playing school B, now you're suddenly the number 4 ranked team is playing the number 7 ranked team. It used to be just a random game, but now we can attach these rankings to it, and suddenly it's a big game.
Yes.
It was just, it's a big game. And so people loved it. People started communicating on social media about it back and forth, and stuff like that. So as we put out the Tampa Bay Top 10 prospectus to all the coaches, we put we positioned it as something to help raise the profile of high school soccer, and we put a 10-year plan
Mhm.
in there for different things we could end up doing. And one item in that 10-year plan was starting a high school Champions League someday. You know, well, the popularity of the Tampa Bay Top 10 Coaches Poll really moved up the timeline on the Champions League, very right to the front of the list. And so I began talking with people, and one of the first, in fact, the first person that I really talked with about the Champions League was David Wilson.
Yes.
And the reason for David is, number one, he's a really well-known coach in the Tampa Bay area with a great reputation. You know how you have so many St. Louis coaches that are not only good coaches, but they have sterling reputations. People look
Yes.
up to them and respect them. David is like this, right? Plus, he's an athletic director now at a big public school. So you rarely, if ever, do you see the athletic director is also the soccer coach.
Yes,
Almost
that's right.
always, the athletic director is the football coach or an ex-football coach or a basketball coach, maybe, but never the soccer coach. So I'm thinking David is perfect to do this Champions League because he loves it. He loves the
Mhm.
Tampa Bay Top 10 already. He was one of the first people to get involved with the Tampa Bay Top 10, and he has the wherewithal as an athletic director. He has the administrative skills that I don't have, because athletic directors, they've got to schedule buses and referees, and they have these skills.
All across.
They know how to
Yeah.
make things happen, right? So David got involved right away, and he loved it. He began to get excited about it. Then what we did, our strategy for spreading the Champions League was, rather than have a big meeting and roll it out to everybody, human nature, as you know, Mo, is if you tell a whole bunch of people something all at once, before anybody raises their hand and says, that's really cool, they're going to look to their left, look to their right, and see if
Mhm.
anybody else is raising their hand.
Oh,
They don't want to be
yes.
the first one, right? So I thought, if we roll the Champions League out like this, it doesn't have a chance, because people are going to wait for the first person to raise their hand.
Mhm.
So we decided to say, okay, we're going to go one coach at a time. David Wilson first. His team, Wiregrass Ranch High School, was one of the best teams in Florida, not just the Tampa Bay area.
Mhm.
So then we identified another coach, Rick Macy, another really well-known coach in the Tampa Bay area, sterling reputation, been coaching since the 70s.
Yes.
I've known Rick Macy since the late 1970s as a coach, referee, and he's a big high school soccer advocate. So went to Rick. He was all in. So now each new coach that we talked to, and we sort of made a list of coaches that we thought, in the order of the list, was the ones most likely to like this, down to the ones least likely to like it. And so each new coach that we talked to, we said, listen, Wiregrass Ranch and Seminole High School are in. Are you in? And then they would say yes. And then the next coach would say, Wiregrass, Seminole, and this school are in. Are you in? And so this gathering momentum started coming, and all of the people that were in were well-respected people. It would be
Uh,
like in St. Louis saying, Terry Mickler is in. Are you in?
yeah, pretty
Terry
much.
Mickler and Mike Gavane and Greg Keller are in. Are you in? Sarah Gunther, Dave Ehrenberg are in. Are you in? So you build this momentum to where you get to the naysayers down at the end. They're the last ones you talk to. Well, they don't have any choice but to be in.
Yeah,
You know,
it's nice to have a little peer pressure. It sounds like.
gentle,
Yes.
gentle,
Yes.
gentle. And it's like, and the pitch was like, listen, if you want to come in, you can. If you don't want to, that's no problem. It's a brand new thing. It might fail. Well, all they'd have to do is read the cards and say, "Wow, I can't be left out of this," right?
Yes.
So we ended up. So that was really important. The whole strategy of how we rolled that out, and I tell coaches in each metro area that that's as important as the idea itself, the strategy that you use to roll the idea out, because you've got to the natural instinct, especially with the academies being so against high school soccer, the natural instinct is to wave it off. Ah, no, that's not because you feel safe in the soccer community
Right.
waving off high school soccer. It's almost like if you want to get some status in a soccer conversation, maybe just trash high school soccer. And people will look at you and go, "Oh yeah, he's one of them. He knows what's going on. He thinks high school soccer sucks. We all do too. So he's good." And so you have to recognize that that's how people think. And so when you go about things in a sort of very deliberate manner, where you get like-minded people, and especially like-minded people with good reputations, to say, "Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Count me in." Then you build momentum. And the truth about people who wave off high school soccer is it's never a principled criticism, because the principled criticisms of high school soccer can be defeated in 2 minutes. In a 3 minute
So
argument, you can just defeat any principled argument about high school soccer never stands up to scrutiny. And 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 as a way of backing that up, if there's anybody out there listening that wants to make the principal argument about high school soccer, call me up. Let's have a conversation. Maybe you can change my mind. But
mhm.
the principled arguments don't really exist. They're easily defeated, and I'm happy to take that on. So the reason that people are against high school soccer, for the most part, is as a it's either selfish, they want the players to themselves, it's financially motivated, they are being paid to coach these kids. And how do they explain to the parents who are paying them, "I'm going to let the kids go for 3 months now"?
Right.
So what do you say? "Keep paying me anyway"? Do you say, what do you say? You want that money. So, are you going to say to the parents, "I'm going to let the kids go for 3 months. They're going to go play high school. It's good for them, but I still need you to keep paying me because this is my job"? That's a hard argument to make.
Yeah.
An
And
easy, go
go ahead.
ahead. No,
No,
an
because
easier, go ahead,
because
Mark.
I'm starting to see, I think, especially with working with you guys, for the past, I think, maybe 2 years or so, I'm starting to find maybe like depending on the region also of when they have like where high school soccer season starts versus where a lot of the teams have to play. It looks like it, like in the, we'll say in St. Louis, for example, I've saw some of the Lufuse girls that do play in like the ACNL and all. They also are playing high school soccer. So I'm starting to see maybe it's either the region or self interest, like you mentioned. But it looks like as we discuss a little bit more of the benefits of high school soccer, you start to see maybe the light bulb turns on and start to say, so maybe it is actually good to have them play it. It's maybe just the, like you say, the choir that says high school soccer maybe not be the best
Right.
place to be for. And I think one of, like we spoke not long ago, like Eric Winalda, during his podcast, he did mention, that high school soccer should be talked a lot more and people should play it as well because it's not just the play on the field, it's also the mental stage of it to be able to play in front of a crowd and others. So I think there is just a talk over the noise of what high school soccer could be like because you don't really have that experience. I think it's probably high school soccer is the closest to the open soccer system that we have in Europe where everybody can play it. All you have to do is represent your city, state, street, or um, country. So
Yes.
that's why I was fairly attracted to you guys, Champions League High School, because it's closer to the essence of what soccer
Hmm.
is first, where it's more important to represent where you're from and what you do and represent your community versus, all the self-interest that comes afterward.
No, I think you're right, Mo. And I think another element to this is because you're talking about a soccer culture and
Yes.
what a soccer culture is like. And the thing about culture is this. Um, One mistake that I think has been made in U.S. soccer is that we have tried to import European or South American culture into the United States and say, because those people are good at soccer, we must take their culture and put it in the United States. This is the United States. Our culture our sport culture is built on school involvement in sport.
Yep.
All you have to do is look at the number of 100,000 plus stadiums that exist in college football and how crazy people are for their school sports. St. Louis is a perfect example. I mean, as you know, Mo, what's the first thing that you are asked when you are in St. Louis? Hey, how are you? What school did you go to?
Yeah, what high school you went to?
What
Yes.
what I it's part of culture.
Yes.
So to say forget that culture, forget who you are, because in Croatia or in Buenos Aires, this is how they do it. Therefore, we have to do it here because they have good soccer teams over there. This is backward thinking to me. This is just completely nonsensical thinking. The way to do it is to say, okay, you don't you don't change the culture to fit the sport. You make the sport work within the culture. That's what I think. People can argue with that, but the thing that you're talking about a little while ago there is there's a key component of soccer is the emotional connection
Yes.
that a player has to the game, a player has to the fans have to the game, this emotional connection. And in the United States, people are emotionally connected to a few things, but one of them is their school. There's an emotional connection there. And you are saying, me, Dr. Soccer Expert, I am going to use my scalpel and cut that out and then declare to you that's better. I'm going to cut out a part of your heart, a part of what matters most to you. But because I'm a soccer expert and I have this alphabet soup of leagues that I belong to and licenses that I have, and I maybe in some cases I speak with a foreign accent or maybe not, you should listen to me because I'm going to fix you. I'm going to make sure you silly Americans get it right. No, you're wrong. You are wrong, sir, or ma'am, whatever the case may be. Um, Look, you don't start by cutting the heart out of the patient, and you start by um, supporting the heart and working with the heart. That's what I think, and I think there's plenty of room to do this. The big thing that you have to really answer to is it isn't just a philosophical discussion. It is more than that. There's money involved.
Yep.
I don't have a financial outcome riding on my side of my argument. I don't make more money or less money if my argument wins. It's not
Sure.
connected to finances. It's a purely philosophical discussion. But when you're arguing with somebody who has a financial motive in the outcome of the argument, you're no longer having a financial philosophical discussion. You're having
Sure.
a discussion about what influences their pocketbook. And that's a fine discussion to have. But what has happened in the United States is that people with a financial outcome in the philosophical argument are are have in some cases won the philosophical argument,
Mhm.
and it's almost like don't look at my wallet. We're not talking about that right now.
Mhm.
Honestly, we're just talking about this way of thinking. Okay. And we're supposed to accept that. Why are we supposed to accept that? Because as Americans, we don't really know what we're doing. So we have to accept this other argument. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not going
Uh,
for that.
uh, it's totally fair, and I think it's one of those where soccer is still young in the U.S., so I think it's you still have that still trying to figure out those paths. And well, United States is so big, so I think probably one of the biggest issues is that it is so large that, and there's so many people, in the hand in the cookie jar, we'll say, that have so much influence. If you go to France, right, it's smaller than Texas, so one
Mhm.
person can talk. It says this is the way we'll do it, and this is how our country wants to play it. This is how it's going to go. So I guess for high school itself, so we know that it's a nonprofit, um, and you guys. There's some huge names and legends of American soccer, and now we still have African and European that starting to kind of join you guys
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
promote St. Louis. I was going to say St. Louis
That's
Champions League, which
yes.
I have ties to it. But um, for those that don't are not familiar with the high school Champions League, like on the quick 15-second,
Sure.
what would you tell someone's like, I know about the European Champions League, so what is high school Champions League
It's
in a
so
nutshell?
if European Champions League answers the question, who has the best team in Europe?
in
That's
in
that.
the
I mean,
Champions League?
no,
Ooh,
the purpose of the
yeah,
U.S. The purpose of the Champions League, the purpose of the Champions League is to answer this question: who has the best club team in Europe?
yep,
Let's find out on the field.
yep,
Well, the High School Champions League answers the question: who has the best high school team in a given metro area?
mhm,
That's the purpose of the High School Champions League, is to answer that question. And the reason that that there needs to be a Champions League is that in high school you have um, public schools, private schools, large schools, small schools. They don't always play each other,
right,
and they are in different conferences or different state classifications or whatever the case may be. So um, why is the metro important? Because um, people care about what's happening in the metro area. Like if I said to you, Mo, there's an under 15 team from Lou Fuse, and they're going over to Nebraska to play a really good under 15 team in Omaha. That's going to be a great game. You might say, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that'll work out, but it won't touch you emotionally.
yep.
But if we say, in the high school Champions League final, we have Liberty versus Core. How do you say their name?
Courageous,
Courageous.
yes,
There is suddenly an emotional impact to that because you know the names of those schools. Or if you're saying uh, Ladue versus CBC, now you're bringing in all these public, private, suburb,
mhm,
city. You're bringing all these things in that are emotional, that people connect to emotionally, and they don't even have to be soccer fans to be connected to it. So the metro, keeping it metro based, is about keeping that emotional connection of what takes place within a metro. People care about what's happening in their hometown. The other reason why the metro basis of it is so important is there's too much travel. In my opinion, there's too much travel in soccer. People are driving past 25 soccer fields to play on a field against a team that they could have played on any one of the other 25 fields.
sure.
They're crossing two state lines to play a team, and I defy parents to say, have you never thought to yourself, what am I doing in a lawn chair in Indiana? What am I doing here? We these teams we're playing are no different than we have teams we have at home. In fact, the teams we have at home are better than the team we're playing here. And so people, the common sense sort of element of soccer comes in. Are there times when you should travel? Yes. At the highest level, when you get the very best kids play for St. Louis City Academy, they need to leave the city because they already are the best players in the city. So they need to play some other city's best players. But are you telling me that, random under 15, under 14 teams of random collection of players need to go to other states to play other random collections? It doesn't make any sense to me. And there's so much money and time spent on soccer, traveling, away from family. There's other family members. There's the sister who does this, and who's in dance, and the other brother who takes the piano lessons. And these people all have to suffer because we have set up this system where everybody has to travel all the time. And
that's my lifestyle.
there, and if you had to do it, right? If there is no option, then that's what you do for your kids. But there is an option. There's local competition, and there's except, as I said, at the very highest level. So when the local competition is there, and there's other things involved, there's family members, and it's funny, some of the people who will argue loudest about no, we have to travel to North Carolina will also, in another argument, argue no, global warming is killing us. But they won't see the connection between their political beliefs and their soccer lifestyle. I mean, I just think things like that, people need to just use common sense. If you have to travel, that's what you do. But do you have to travel? So I'm really big on this metro part, and I think it matters to who's got the best team in a metro area. That really matters. And in St. Louis, why do you need to go anywhere? You got so many good teams and players there, right?
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm a transplant of St. Louis, so I'm definitely impressed by that one. And I think just wanted to also give a shout out to the high school St. Louis girls that just finished their tournament 2 weeks ago. So it was Liberty versus Courageous, and I think, like you mentioned, right, the Metro is some of the teams that may not necessarily play against each other, especially knowing that Liberty is in Woodsville and then Courageous is more close to St. Louis. So it's like they're it's the county and the city usually don't see each other well, where then they all come into Chesterfield, which is right in the middle of it, and then play at Maryville University, soccer field, which is amazing stadium. And I think it's one of those things where they have their family members, their friends. When we were there, you have the coach, all the great coaches watching them. So I think it's that, like you say, why the culture, the community just coming in from pretty much, the West and the North, all into the Central to kind of watch high school soccer. I was seeing all of the parents, friends coming and cheer for them. The boys right before that, if I believe St. Dominic won that tournament. Yes. I mean, it was in Creve where it was so packed on the stands, people had to be around the fence to watch the game.
Love it.
Those are games that you only can have if it's the community is behind it. And now they all says, yeah, we have the best high school soccer team, and we proved it because we beat the best during that year. So I think that's where we're starting to get all the coverage in St. Louis. People are talking about it. Kids talking about it. So it's one of those excitement that add on top of what St. Louis craze is of soccer to begin with. So I think it's one of those beautiful things that bringing more fans to the sport itself. And sometimes you don't get to see the kids that, we'll say are good, that usually play in those better teams that have to travel. It's one of those nice things to have to watch here. I mean, I believe Maria, I forget her last name. She was actually the Gatorade Soccer Player of the Year.
Maddie, is it Maddie
yes.
Di Maria?
Yes. Yeah. So, like, we're talking a person that won the Gatorade Soccer Athlete in the country.
Yes.
Plays for Courageous, and she plays also club, but I believe she left from California, all the way to come and play for her high school team final.
That's amazing.
And she didn't have to. We all know she didn't have to. She has the title. So I don't know how many teams can say, our best player in the entire country actually played in the champions
That's so
final
cool.
at Maryville. So I think there's that movement is making strive. The coaches that I talk to from various levels, as you know, every time I talk to them, I bring it up. So I think it's more of the communications of high school soccer. Eric Winalda is a big component as well. That's kind of mentioned it. You know that high
Hmm.
school soccer is. I think it's just has to be put in the forefront and advertised more that it is important and it should be part of the culture as well.
Totally
Um,
agree.
that's how you prepare kids to play in front of thousands of people. Some
Yes.
might be nice to you, some might not be so much. But that's
Yes.
part of being um, an athlete, pretty much, right? You have to play in front of people.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you have to play for something,
Yeah.
not just yourself.
Yes.
And you're playing for an institution or a city or whatever the case may be. Um, I want to share something with the St. Louis audience, and I know
Yeah.
I know this story is pretty well known, but it's worth retelling if people don't know about it. Perry Vanderbeck, who's a St. Louis native, who's down here, as you know, because he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Rowdies in
Yes.
1978. He's made Tampa his home. Played for the U.S. 23 times. Played over 500 pro games. Great soccer person. When we have our Champions League draw, we invite local soccer celebrities to come and do our Champions League draw with us. And Perry was one that we invited to do the Champions League draw. And Perry came. We do it at a sports bar, and it's a great atmosphere. And Perry came, and after 15 minutes of just sitting there taking it all in, he says, "Jim, how do we get this to St. Louis? Because this would go great in St. Louis." And I'm like, well, let's just get connected with, who do you know? He goes, I already been thinking about it. I'm going to write an email as soon as I get home. I'm going to write an email to Terry Mickler and Michael Vane and Greg Keller and some of my other friends, Vince Drake, who I think was Terry's coach. Um, and I'm going to tell them about this because I think they would.
Oh, just bear with us. It looks like we may have lost um, Coach Jim for just a moment, so we'll give him a few minutes to join us back. But well, as well, since we're waiting for him, make sure you go and subscribe to all of the social media for the High School Champions League. They're starting to show more of the drawing now for the upcoming tournaments, and also make sure you follow MoFutbol for all your upcoming guess we'll say upcoming shows. So let's give Coach Jim just a few minutes to join us back. We're having such a great conversation that the internet decided to go.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. You're back.
Oh, thank goodness. Woo. I gotta,
Technology and live.
yes, craziness. Okay, we're so anyway. So Perry Vac is the reason that you guys have the Champions League. So he connected us with you guys.
Yes, and we also have in also Coach Harrington Herberg, who is currently the we'll say Coach of the Year. Also, so when we're talking about high school soccer and coaches in St. Louis and Tampa, we're talking to people that have coached many young players, who now becomes also coaches themselves. Um, so for to close out a little bit of the high school part, so what would you say is one thing that coaches, players from various high school and clubs could do to kind of bridge some of that gap?
I just think letting people know how they feel. I think players are afraid. Not. I'm not trying to dog players here, but I think I don't think they understand the power they have. The realization is that without players, there are no clubs,
Sure.
and the clubs want the players to think that the clubs hold all the cards, but the players are the ones that hold the cards. And the reason that some of the clubs come around is because players, like here in Tampa, for example, players say to clubs, "Hey, I'm not going to be at this practice that you're holding because we have a Champions League game, and I'm not going to miss that." Or like Maddie saying, "Hey, I might be in California, but my team's playing for the Champions League final. I've got to be there." And I think players there's sort of an insidious peer pressure or pressure, not peer pressure, but pressure from clubs that goes on with players, and they threaten players and they make players feel like they're going to miss out on something or they're going to be punished. Players need to just say, "Look, maybe if you're going to do that, maybe I'm in the wrong club because that's not who I am. I wouldn't do that if I was a club. If one of my players wanted to play high school, I would try to find a way to work with the high school." Uh, the players need to just let people know, and the families need to let people know this is important to us. We're committed to you. We signed up for you. We paid you money. We're going to be there, but this is an important part of our world, and we want to be a part of it. Please, please, club, please work with the high school coach because our high school coach is a very reasonable person. Now, not all high school coaches are reasonable people. There are some really bad high school coaches. In fairness, I'm not talking out of school. Everybody knows this, but there are some really bad club coaches too, and there
I
are
guess
some
people in
really.
general, I guess for college.
It's
Yes.
human. It's
Yes.
human, and there are some nasty club people and some nasty high school people.
Mhm.
The bottom line is, I think that we make a big mistake when we throw everybody in the same boat.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, I think it really rests with the players. The players make all the difference. And when the players let it be known that, look, I want to play for my high school, so let's make it work. That's what changes it. The arguments for and against, you know, the fact that I said earlier in our interview, I feel like I can defeat easily any argument that's against high school soccer. I can easily defeat it in an argument. But the fact that doesn't matter. The fact that I can win an argument or the other side can win an argument, that's not what matters. What matters is what do the players want to do. And if high school soccer wasn't any good, the players wouldn't want to do it.
Sure.
It would shrivel up and die of its own weight of being no good. But it is a real thing. It's a once in a lifetime thing. And the idea that, Terry Mickler recently wrote a paper called 0.5%. That was the title of the paper. And that's a percentage of kids that make it to the pros. The idea that 99.5% of the kids must forego their high school soccer career so that they can be at practice to help the 0.5% have quality people to practice with so they can themselves get a contract. And the other 99.5 are supposed to sacrifice everything, their own enjoyment in the game, just to see that this 0.5 gets what they want. It's ridiculous. It's un-American, and it's not just un-American, it's forget America, it's just foolish. And so I think reasonable people can find ways to work together. uh, I always have believed that. And look, I'm not against getting paid. I was in club soccer for 40 years, for 20 years as a director, so I've been paid. I'm not against people getting paid to be involved in soccer. It's not that, but it's about being reasonable. It's about, first of all, how much pay. I had a friend recently told me it used to be that coaches would get paid so they had gas money to go, justify driving to games and stuff. And now coaches are getting paid because to make their boat payment or their summer home payment or something like that. And it's like, wait a minute, uh, off youth soccer, you're supposed to make this lifestyle? What? You can't justify that to me. I mean, in a few cases, maybe, in a very few cases, now people might say, well, people are willing to pay. Okay, you know, That does that how we set up a system because people are willing to pay? I don't know. I look. I don't want to go down there. But what point I wanted to make is, I'm not against pay to play per se, but things cost money and they have to be paid for. That's of course that's
Yep.
true. But but I think when people say no, I'm sorry, that's too much that you're asking of me. I don't want to give up my high school career. I think you're asking way too much money for what you're giving. I don't think it's a fair deal. And I'm just not going to participate. I think players don't realize they hold the power, but they do.
Yeah, and I think that's the great part of kind of finding the medium part to where I guess both are coincident. Um, and I think I don't know who, probably I read it somewhere where when it comes up and says, if you're paying to be into an academy, are you really part of an academy? Because usually when someone says you're part of the academy, is that you've reached a certain level of playing, that someone is willing to invest in you for your development, and then
Mhm.
maybe it will pay off in the future, if they
Mhm.
reach that certain level. So I think it's those good conversation to where maybe hopefully there will be sort of that medium where it says, yes, you can play for a certain level and then still able to play for your high school, because the biggest one is the experience that you have when you play in front of your friends and family is totally different than when you only play versus
That's right.
in front of coaches and um, those that have self-interest. So I think it's one of those conversations that we'll probably still have for quite a while, maybe in our lifetime. But um, so with that say, do you have anything else, a closure for like
Yes.
high school
Yes.
itself? Because I have some fun questions for you that hopefully
Okay,
you will be
great.
able to
Great.
answer.
No, I'm happy to. So the closing thing is that the High School Soccer Champions League is a national movement, but it's local control. It's local, it's run locally by the local coaches. The national part is the five principles of the Champions League movement, which are what hold the movement together, which is free to play, sponsor supported, merit-based inclusion, no special corridor for favored teams. There's objective metrics that are created and publicized ahead of time, and may the best team win. Whoever meets those metrics, that's who gets invited. So merit-based inclusion. Third one is metro-based competition. We're not having to get people traveling. Fourth one is coach collaboration. We haven't even touched on how coaches steal one another's players and don't really work nice together in the sandbox in club soccer. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. Even in high school soccer, they don't always work together, but in the Champions League, you have to because coach collaboration is uh, is the fourth principle of the Champions League, and the fifth one is student athlete empowerment. Mo, I know you're big on this, but there are kids that cannot afford thousands of dollars to play high school or to play soccer, but they can play for their high school. And some of those kids are good players. They should have something super cool to be a part of. And the Champions League aims to be that. So those five principles, and then they can be applied. The Champions League can be applied differently in different areas. There's four areas doing the Champions League right now: Tampa Bay, St. Louis, Polk County, Florida, which is adjacent to Tampa Bay, and South Florida, down in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, that area. Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Memphis are the closest ones to adding a Champions League. But there's
Nice.
also, we're talking to people in all of these areas. I'm probably forget some of them: Chattanooga, Tennessee, Des Moines, Iowa, El Paso, Texas, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, um, Omaha, if I didn't say that already, some folks in Wisconsin, Madison, Detroit, um, Denver. I'm sure Central Illinois. I'm leaving a few out, but these are all individuals that have heard about this, and thanks to people like yourself And Mo, you remember when we first talked about the Content Creator Network, and you said, "Oh, that's a great idea. I know so many people. I talk to them all the time." You know, the more people that you talk to, Mo, that you share the word with, and that start talking about. Charlotte, North Carolina is another one, by the way.
Nice.
Um, that these people are talking about the Champions League, and they want to know more about it. They want to understand it. And most of the people that we talk to, their first question that they ask, or one of the first questions is, "How much is this going to cost us?"
Ooh, yeah.
And what we say is, it doesn't cost you anything. This is just an idea that you can take and implement locally. And if you want to charge people for it, have at it. You're just not part of our group, because that violates one of our key five principles, which is that it's free. So to be part of our group, um, the thing that binds our group are the five principles: free to play, metro based, merit based, coach collaboration, student athlete empowerment, and then find your way to do it locally. And people love it. People absolutely love it. And the more success we're having, like professional organizations love it. The Tampa Bay Rowdies love it, as you know,
Yes.
uh, because you were there with us down there at Al Lang, and they love it because by supporting the high school Champions League, they're supporting the entire Tampa Bay area,
Yep.
because every school in Tampa Bay could potentially be in the Champions League. They're all eligible for it. So in one move, they support everybody. And we don't even ask them for money. We just
Just
want
support.
to, we just want to have our final there
Mhm.
and have them, do things like they did for you when you came down, which they're happy to do. And
Which is priceless.
it's amazing. So that's where we're at. And thank you, Mo, for your support of the High School Champions League. You instinctively, from day one, have said, "Oh, this is awesome. I'm going to do everything I can to help." And we're super grateful for that. So thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And like I told you many times, right? It's just giving back to the sport that have given me so much. And one of those things is um just the friends, the connections, and the people that we talk to. Um, you and I would have never met if it wasn't for
That's,
soccer
that's
to begin with, and other people from across the country. So it's always one of those things where um, every time we talked, it's something about soccer. I interviewed someone from Kansas City just yesterday, big rivals in MLS. But one thing that ties all together is soccer.
that's it.
So it's one of those stories where anytime where there's that sport, soccer, football, however you want to call it, there's always someone to talk to. And
Yes,
there's people like yourself all across the country that are doing
yes,
great work that don't get the recognition that you deserve, pretty much. So, and one thing is high school soccer. I think in St. Louis we're kind of spoiled that high school soccer is big as well. So
mhm,
that we do have that involvement. But
mhm,
the more and more that you kind of spread out, you start to see a little bit of that disconnect. So um,
yes,
and from what I know, the greatest soccer player in the world started, with one reason was to enjoy the sport first, and then to get out of whatever situations they were in. So it was not made for the people that have it, but it's more for
yeah,
a way to get out of trouble, which soccer got me out of a lot of trouble that I could have get myself into. So yeah, so pretty much that's why I try to tell everybody is that a lot of us that talk soccer don't have any benefits that comes out of it. It's just that we like to talk to people about the sport. We all have our different experiences to the sport. I get to speak to legends like yourself. So it's I can't complain.
thank you,
And
Mo.
that's
Appreciate
so
it.
yes, go ahead.
No, that's all. I just wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, so I guess so let's start on some of the fun question because
Okay, let's do
um
it.
so the first one, do you prefer to play on grass or turf?
Grass. But I will
Grass.
say that the last school I taught at, Carrollwood Day School, built a beautiful turf field.
Mhm.
Beautiful. And there were a lot of advantages to it. For instance, it was always the same. It was
Yep.
always perfect, always a true bounce, but grass is hard to, I'm old school.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't blame anyone that has it because grass is very expensive to take care of.
Yes,
So you need the pros for that one. So any favorite coaching books that
yes,
you?
yes. I like to read different books in different sports because I think coaches are coaches. You know, the principles overlap. One of my favorite books is a book called Leading by Alex Ferguson, and it just he just explains his whole method in that book. Another one is a book by Bob Knight, who explained his methodology in college basketball coaching. Another one is a book. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's about a high school soccer coach in Maine who won a state championship using immigrants that had come to Maine from a nation in Africa. I don't remember which one. It's probably about 20 years since I read this book. I'm going to look it up and send it to you.
Yeah.
Fantastic story, dream story, beautiful story. Um, but no, coaching books. I would start. I would begin with Leading by Sir Alex Ferguson.
Nice. So you went from the very reserved soccer coach to the madness basketball coach to
Yeah.
the very interesting and inspirational soccer team. And I think that one almost touched one of the teams in Kansas City that I think won state or close to one state, where it was a lot of
Yes,
American kids that was less fortunate and that were, I guess, made it all the way to. uh, I don't know if they won. I think they maybe
they
have
did.
won
They
or
beat
so.
Ladue. They beat
Yes.
Ladue. You gotta
So I
remember.
think it's one of those great stories. So it looks like, be a calm, but also crazy, but also have inspirational um,
Yes.
books. Nice. I like that part. So do you recall one player that you loved coaching against?
Against.
Yes. Any
Well,
shout out or
there, there's
school
a
if you like, maybe.
there's a guy named his name is Randy Irick. He is now currently the head coach of Palm Harbor University girls soccer team. They won the first girls Champions League down here.
Mhm.
I had Randy on my staff for a number of years. I coached him as a youth player at Clearwater Chargers, but in high school, he went to Countryside High School, which was our one of our big rivals.
Yeah.
And Randy always likes to tell you that his teams never lost to CCC. Now, you have to understand, CCC, my school, was the dominant school in Florida. We had the best high school soccer team in the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. And the time Randy, I think he graduated from Countryside in 93, if I'm not mistaken. And he was one of these outspoken, emotional, you love to hate him type people. And we could never beat his team. But he's the kind of guy who you hate to play against him, but you love to have him on your team because he'll do anything for you. And that's why I got him involved as on our coaching staff. And Randy is one of the high school, the girls' high school Champions League is now being taken over by the girls' coaches here in Tampa Bay, and Randy's one of those key individuals that's doing that. So yeah, he's the first one that comes to mind. Uh, as a matter of fact, funny enough, remember I told you Jack McKenzie recruited a couple of our players from Quincy.
Yes.
He, Randy was one of them. He spent a year playing for Quincy College for Jack McKenzie up there.
Nice.
So
So, small world.
yeah,
Nice. That. So I guess for that one, so will it be? Is there someone that you would love for me to interview and have on this podcast?
so
That
he'd be an amazing interview.
okay? So it looks
He'd
like
be
we'll try to make that happen.
I will get you his contact information. Yeah.
So the last part. So the World Cup is coming next year.
Hmm.
So I guess that's a two-part question. So the first one, how far do you think the US will go? And the second one is that um, would you be happy on how they perform, or would it be where they're placed at the end
Well,
of the tournament?
great questions. First, I'm a big lover of US soccer, of USA. I'm not a big lover of the current national team right now. I'm just not. Uh, I don't have a lot of confidence in them. I don't have a lot of faith in them. But I've learned in my life, don't bet against the U.S. because the U.S. will, when they're least expect. One of my favorite books. You talk about books. The book 1776 by David McCullough. It's a book about history, and it talks about how dire we think things are bad now. Things are a piece of cake now compared to 1776, how bad things were. But people rallied and made things happen. This is something in the United States DNA. So I think that there's a possibility that our team can do well. But to be honest with you, I don't see where it's going to come from. I just don't. It would not surprise me for the U.S. not to get out of their group.
Ooh.
Uh, I'm cheering for them to,
Mhm.
but I would not surprise me to see them not get out of their group because they have got a long way to go. They've got to dig in and show leadership and and fight and determination. The question of the early teams, 94 and 2002 that went to the final eight, 2010 in South Africa, those teams had grit and determination and heart. And maybe there's something to be said for when there's not a whole lot of money at stake.
Mhm.
Maybe what you're playing for is something deeper than that. And our kids are all millionaires and
Yeah.
they're not leaders on their teams. They're not captains. They're highly paid second line players on their club teams. I'm not trying to diminish them. I'm just trying to fairly characterize them. Christian Pulisic is an excellent player, but he's not really a leader. He's not. He's just a really great player.
Yeah,
But
it's a little bit more reserved. Yes.
yeah. You don't. You need leaders, and who are they? Who are the leaders on our team? They have to still emerge. Now, um, what what I so that's what I think. I wouldn't be surprised to see them get out to see them not get out of their group, but I'm hoping that they do. I hope that answered your question because it was a
Yeah.
two-part question.
Yes, and I think that's always the feeling, especially when you're the host nation. Um, that's where things becomes a little complicated, especially when you don't have as much competitive games leading to a World Cup. So then you kind of play friendlies, and that does not really show what the team is about because there's not really it's a friendly pretty much. So I think their intensity does not match usually. So I'm quite interested on seeing those players playing like in a full, 90,000 stadium,
Yep.
people watching. They may, kind of stand up to the occasion at that time because, now when it's a World Cup, it's a World Cup,
Yes,
right?
maybe
Eh,
that'll bring out the best in them. I'm
Yes.
I'm hoping I'm hoping it does. And like like to bring it back to high school soccer for just a quick minute, the goal Christian Pulisic scored against Iran in the last World Cup
Mhm.
was a scrappy goal. It was well constructed, right? The passes leading up to it, but when McKinney launched the ball into the box, it was all about guts and determination for Pulisic to put his body on the line
Yes.
for a goal. Well, that is a high school soccer goal, if there ever was one. That is high school soccer is all about those types of plays, those types of sacrifices. I'm not saying that competitive players don't make those sacrifices, but when you play for your high school, there's something that comes over you. You feel like this, you're playing for something much bigger than yourself, and you're willing to do crazy things like put yourself at risk
Yeah,
of
yeah.
damage. That our players need to experience that. Our players need to play in those scrappy games, with lots of people screaming and yelling and lots of emotion on the line. We don't have to have that be the only part of our development. It shouldn't even be the biggest part of our development,
Mhm.
but it should be a part of it.
Oh,
And
yes.
then we'll see more goals like the one that Pulisic scored. And I think the teams that did best for the U.S. had that element. They had that scrappiness about them. In addition to playing, I think, and I worry that we are sanitizing this game with generations of players coming up now playing in these protected corridors that people are paying a lot of money to put them in and in front of family and friends on lawn chairs, and that's it. And nobody watching. Terry Mickler tells a great story of a game at the soccer park where CBC was playing somebody else. There's 5,000 people there to watch,
Yes.
and over on the next field is an academy game with 15 people watching, and and the kids in the academy game. Well, anyway, that's all I got time for, Mo. I'm gonna have to sign off.
Yes, and definitely Soccer Park is one of those historical places where yes, everybody plays. So yes, so definitely appreciate your time, Coach. For those of you that have not followed just yet, make sure you follow STR Champions League, and I'll also make sure to share everyone the Champions League details on the socials. Coach, definitely appreciate your time, and you enjoy the sun, and we in St. Louis enjoy the rain.
Thank you so much, Mo. Thanks for covering the Champions League. Really appreciate it. All the best, everybody. Okay.
Absolutely. Take care.